Hola, hola. Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing? I hope that your week is off to a good start. Um, what's today? Today's Monday. Lord help us. It's just the beginning of the week. I had a busy day today, but tú saben que siempre tengo que hacer tiempo para estudiar mi español. Así que before I do that, I just wanted to make another quick video. And hopefully this information will be beneficial to some. Yeah, so basically in this video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about vocabulary, and I also want some feedback too for everyone else who may be watching my videos, whoever that is. If you can also share in the comments section below, what are some ways or what do you do to help aumentar, build up your vocabulary when you are studying Spanish or whatever language that you may be learning at this time. As you all know, as I said in my previous video, I'm not a teacher. I've been studying Spanish for about 3 years, 3.5, close to 4 years. I'm still a beginner. I'm still learning. And basically, I'm just sharing videos to not only encourage others, but also to kind of share my journey along the way as well, and to share my progress as well. So yeah, right now, let's go ahead and get started. So I don't know if you all know, but Books A Million, and of course the library as well, library is free, but Books A Million has a ton of very useful books in Spanish, whether it's books that you're looking for if you're a beginner, and you're looking for like real basic books to get started on when you're learning the language. They have those, like the children's books, and they also have books for older people as well. Like, for example, this is one that I bought the other day. Las mujeres exitosos hablan diferente. I shared it on my Instagram the other day, and I am so excited to get started with this one. I want to say this is my 4th book in Spanish. Let me tell you, my very first book that I read, it was a book by Joyce Myers. No puedo recordar. I can't remember the name of the book, but all I know is it took me about 1.5 years to finish it because I didn't know a lot of vocabulary. But it was amazing to see that when I first started the book, I would highlight the words I didn't know. And when I first started that book, I promise you, I felt like I was highlighting like the whole page was yellow. But then by the time I got to the end of the book, nothing was highlighted almost. Like, it was very few words that I didn't know. So that just goes to show you that reading is very effective. The repetition is very effective. Just seeing the words, seeing the vocabulary, they start to stick the more that you read. So reading is definitely something very important to do if you are learning a language. So yes, this book, I'm very excited to get started on it. I love reading books like this because I've noticed in a lot of like devotional type books, those are the type of books that I like to read in English. So I noticed that even when I read them in Spanish, the language is pretty much the same. So a lot of the words that they use in these books are words that I normally use on a day-to-day basis. And if you focus on the words that you typically will use on a day-to-day basis, they tend to stick a little bit more. So I always tell people that when you are learning a language, when you are reading books, it is extremely important not to waste your time on words that you wouldn't even use in English. It's normal not to know every single word. In English, I don't know every single word. If I was to open up the dictionary, I don't know all the words in the dictionary, and that's going to be normal for you as well in Spanish. It's not an expectation for you to know every single word in Spanish. What's important is to make sure that you are studying and focusing on the vocabulary that you will ordinarily use in your day-to-day life when you're speaking, right? So, what are some ways that you can study vocabulary? Well, good question. I always tell people too that is the most important thing to start off with is to make sure that you are aware of your learning style. And I say that because what I share with you, it might not work for you. Because if we don't have the same language style or the same learning style, what I might teach you, it might not stick because that's not your type of learning style. That's not the way that you prefer to learn. That's not an effective way for you to learn. So there are tons of tests you can take online that talk about the 4 language styles. Auditory learner, which are learners that they can just sit and listen to material and just pick it up just like that. Then you have the visual learners where they actually have to physically see the information presented to them in order for it to be effective. And then you have a reading and writing learning style, which is basically what it says, people that have to read the material or write the material in order for it to be effective. And last but not least, tactile learning, which are people that physically have to touch the material in order for it to be effective. So it's very important for you to learn your language style. Me personally, I am a visual learner. I do not like to sit and listen. I'm going to be honest, I don't. And I think that's one of the reasons why I struggle still with my listening comprehension in Spanish, which is something I'm going to challenge myself with next month to better with my next language listening challenge. But with that being said, I can't just sit and listen to material in order for it to stick. It will go in one ear and out the other. So it's very important for me to see the material that's being presented to me. So with that being said, that is why I love using flashcards. I've learned that when I use flashcards, I can, and just seeing the words and seeing the repetition and saying it out loud and looking at it at the same time, or listening to it and seeing it at the same time, it just tends to stick better with me because that is my learning style. So I always say, make sure that you identify your learning style before you start learning the language, because you will listen to all kinds of advice. Do this to learn Spanish, do that to learn Spanish. But what works for that one person might not work for you. So you got to identify your learning style. And I will try to put like a link below of like a website you can go on to figure out what your language style is. But with that being said, flashcards are very useful for me. I love using flashcards. But one thing that I learned is that I don't like the paper flashcards. I don't like the paper flashcards because I can't keep up with them. I can't keep up with anything. I have kids. My brain is like halfway gone. I can't keep up with anything. I think I probably bought like 3 packs of flashcards, and who knows where they are. Maybe they use them. I don't know. So thank God for technology. There are a ton of applications that you can download on your phone that works just as well as the paper flashcards, but better. One that I love to use, Lord have mercy, what is the name of it? It's Quizlet. Quizlet is a very effective, very useful application. It's just like flashcards. I feel like it's geared more towards language learning, and I'm going to show you why, but I'm pretty sure you can utilize it for other things as well if you're studying for other exams. But I feel like it's geared towards language learning, honestly, and I'm going to show you why in a little bit. I'm going to present to you a little quick walkthrough of what the application looked like. But I love it because not only is it like a system where you can study flashcards, but you can also quiz yourself on the vocabulary that you're trying to review and to remember. So one thing that I like to do, one technique that I like to do is, for example, when I'm reading my books, if I run into a word that I don't know, the first thing I do is, of course, I try to read around to see if I could figure out the meaning of the word with using context clues, just like we would do in English, right? And then if I can't figure it out, of course, I will look it up. If it's a word that I would ordinarily use in English, I will study those words. But if it's a word that I look at and like, I see the English translation, I'm like, what does that even mean in English? I don't even use that word in English. I don't waste time studying it. Because at the very beginning, when I first started studying, when I first started reading books, I was trying to remember, I had like 200 flashcards. I was trying to remember every single word, and then I was curious as to why I couldn't remember any of them. It was because it was basically words that I never even used in my day-to-day language. So very important to focus on the words that you would ordinarily use in your vocabulary. So once I take that word, I look it up and I realize, oh, that's a word that I use a lot in English. I stick that word in Quizlet and I review those words, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so the very first thing I want to say is when you are picking out a book to read, please make sure that it's something that you are interested in. If you don't like birds, don't go to the store and buy a book about birds and expect to learn words from it, because it's not going to catch your attention and it's going to get boring and it's going to not make it interesting to want to learn, honestly. So when you are picking out books, try to pick out topics that you would ordinarily read in English. So if you're into history, if you're into stuff like that, pick out some history books in Spanish. If you have a certain type of hobby, pick out that type of hobby in Spanish and read about it. It's a great way to build vocabulary. Now, okay, so I have my highlighter right here. I try to have a highlighter, or I like to use a pencil to underline or highlight the words that I do not know that I need to study, if I think that it's a word that's going to be beneficial for me. So I left off on this paragraph last night when I was studying. So I'm going to continue. En este momento voy a continuarlo. And I'm going to say that, excuse my pronunciation. Like I said, I'm learning. I'm not a teacher. I've only been studying for 3 or 4 years. So excuse my pronunciation, but I want to be as transparent with you all as possible and let you know I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, and you can do the same. Okay, so it says, por otro lado, las personas menos exitosos o exitosas a menudo hablan muerte en situaciones, sueños y relaciones sin ni siquiera darse cuenta de que lo están haciendo. Si logras ver de qué manera puedes haber saboteado sutilmente tus propios deseos en el pasado, entonces con ese conocimiento tendrás el poder de reformular tu futuro por completo. Puedes hacerlo si rectificas cómo te presentas y cómo hablas. So right away, you could tell the words that I struggled with are also the words that I've never used and that I have no idea what they mean. And those words, the first one is this one. Saboteado. No sé qué significa eso, así que voy a estudiarlo. La otra palabra que no sé es eso. Rectificas. No sé qué significa eso, así que voy a estudiar eso también. If I can highlight it. La otra palabra que no sé, no creo que eso es todo, no estoy segura. Esta palabra así, aquí, sutilmente. No sé qué significa eso, así que voy a estudiar esas palabras. Saboteado, sutilmente, no sé cómo pronunciar esta palabra, rectificas. So I'm going to take my application, Quizlet, and show you what that looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly open up the application Quizlet just so you can see what all this application have to offer. I've already have some sets in here because every time I study a book or a song, I like to make a set to study my vocabulary. And I already put las mujeres in here and the words that I highlighted in my book. As you can see, here are the words, rectificar, to correct. And there's so many features you can do. And I just want to show you this really quick too. When you are entering in the words, it's kind of neat because you don't have to look up the word in a separate application to find out the translation. That feature is already built into this application. So for example, sutil, as you can see, it's right there. And the translation pops up right there as well. Auto generates delicate. Sutil means delicate. Sutilmente means delicately. So you can change the language if you're learning a different language, which is another neat feature as well. So many other things you can do. Here's your flashcards where you can also get the pronunciation if you need help with rectificar. That. If you click on the sound, it will pronounce the word for you. You can also use the feature here to practice the spelling, and it will make you respell it until you get it right, which is good repetition. Rectificar. Another feature you can do as well is, this is kind of addicting, the matching game, where you have to try to beat your speed to match your vocabulary with the translation. So it's that repetition again. You can also challenge it with a friend as well if they have the application, which is nice. And finally, you can also test yourself. So for example, sabotage. I'm going to enter in the word right here in Spanish. It's multiple choice and true and false questions as well. So yes, very useful application, especially if you need help studying and reviewing your words.